have in front of me here a 32mm pole coupler that we sell on the tvtrade.ie website. Now this is quite a clever little product, okay? Basically what we're dealing with a situation here is that you're trying to use, let's say, a typical pole like we have here, which is a 1.8 meter galvanized pole, and you discover that the pole is not long enough in terms of you've mounted an aerial there, there's an obstruction in the way, you can't get good reception, and you want to go somewhat higher, okay? Well, one alternative would be obviously to use a longer pole, but it's not always practical to do this. Poles longer than 1.8 meters are almost impossible for us to ship via courier. They're difficult to transport, and if you make a decision that you're going to carry one in a truck with you and you're an installer, you might go a couple of years before you actually need one, okay? So a simpler option is simply to buy a coupler like this, have it in the truck, and then if you do need a higher pole, you can join two poles together, okay? So what we're going to talk about briefly here is how to use this, okay? So you can just see the particular design. It's made in two parts and held together with 6 nuts, okay? 4 nuts probably would be sufficient on it, 6 nuts in this particular one here. And what we do is we can actually slot a pole in one end, slot a pole in the other end, and join it together like this, okay? So for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to do it with a single pole here. I have a pole here, I've loosened off the nuts. And what I'm going to do here is I just simply slide it in, and if we turn to the side here, we want to bring it roughly to the halfway mark. I can do here, and then I could drop a pole in from the far end, okay? So I could just tighten this end here initially, and then that'll leave a certain amount of flexibility to get a pole in the far end, and join two poles together, and we can see we've doubled their height here. But this actually works quite well, and this is not a weak point on the pole. This actually is an extremely strong join, and it works extremely well, okay? Now the limitations of it is, it'll only work with a 32mm or 1.25" pole, which is far and away the most common one. But we have some other products in the range in case you're dealing with a different size pole. Now the alternative immediately one is, if you're dealing with a 2-inch pole exactly, you can go with this one, which you can see is just a much heavier duty version of the previous one, but very much the same logic. Another thing here is, if you know for a certain you're dealing with 2 poles at different sizes here, you need to adjust it here. There's a certain flexibility with this one here, where we'll say we're putting in 1.25" here and maybe 1.5" pole on the far side. And once again, we lock it in position using a 13mm socket here. And the most flexible option we have is this pole coupler here. This comes along where we simply put a pole in here like this. We slot this across, and then we put another pole in here, and we simply use the nuts here to lock them into position. This works extremely well, and this is popular. It's not as powerful as the other one, but it's a lower cost option and it's more flexible. And if it's not a heavy load on top, this can often be a suitable solution. So that's an overview of the type of pole couplers we do, but in particular the 32mm pole coupler that I started the video with.